Well, folks, here we again for the weekly forecast. And of course, during this last week, the big news was a snowstorm that moved across the state that dumped some significant amounts in northern Nebraska. That system developed over the central Rockies, and as we moved into the day Tuesday, started to make its way across the state and finally exited out toward the Great Lakes region. As we went into the day Wednesday, that left a pretty significant band of snow across the northern part of the state, with lesser totals across the southern part of the state. When we look at the liquid equivalent moisture associated with the storm, essentially the bottom two southern tier counties in the state had less than 1/10 of an inch on general. Then as we moved up to the I-80 corridor, generally 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. And as we moved up just to the north of the I-80 corridor, that's where the precipitation total started to jack up rather significantly. And we had between 1/4 and 1/2 inch up into the southern sandhills. And of course, with the main path of storm across extreme northern Nebraska, anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to 1.25 inches has been reported. In terms of snowfall, about the southern sandhills northward, we had better than 8 inches of snowfall, and as long as you got along the South Dakota border from north central Nebraska to northeast Nebraska, totals varying anywhere from 15 inches and unofficially up to 22 inches that we've heard so far. We still have to receive that official data. So a very significant snowstorm. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, we don't have to worry about any significant weather, at least for the next week. So we're going to have a calm period with increasing chances for warmer temperatures moving in, particularly as we get into the early part of the week, before we turn our attention to yet another series of storms moving into California that will probably impact us as we go into the first full week of February. So as we go to the upper air models, what we will notice is that we have this northerly flow and a piece of energy moving down. So there is a chance for some flurry activity, at least through the early part of the day, and then that will start to shift toward the east as we see this flow kind of centered over Iowa as we go into tomorrow, with this ridge starting to build back in, bringing much warmer conditions. But we do get one secondary push of cold air, but that will basically scoot to the northeast of us, and then as that sags in, we see that jet stream over top of us, but there's really no moisture because the mountains are stripping it out, and now the ridge starts to build back in with all the energy over the Great Lakes region. Here comes our next storm system on Wednesday, starting to make its way into the western United States, but it kind of stalls out and slowly migrates eastward from Thursday and Friday into the Intermountain region, and this system will start to eject out into the Central Plains as we get around the 4th of the month. And if that does indeed happen, we are looking at some place in the Central Plains that will see some accumulating snowfall, and it looks like there will be a series of storms just like the past typical storms coming into California, probably a series of 2 or 3 storms that will move out into the Central Plains. So there'll be numerous opportunities for precipitation as we go forward in time. And now if we look at the precipitation, you can see it's pretty much white across the country, and we'll be watching the western seaboard as we go through Sunday for some of that action to start moving into the Pacific Northwest, and eventually it'll start to drop down into California, particularly as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, and start making its way inward. So here we are on Tuesday, the first of that precipitation from that storm coming in. We start to see it congeal across the western United States, and we're looking at some significant heavy precipitation once again for California, making its way into the Sierras. And by the time we get into Friday, we start to see some of that energy pushing out into the high plains region, and we'll expect the whole system itself to move out as we get late in the next weekend. In terms of the temperature precipitation forecast, the temperatures are looking to be colder than normal from next Thursday to the following Tuesday as that system starts to make its way into the Central Plains. And in terms of precipitation, a broad swath of the northern United States will see increasing levels of moisture as these systems move from the southwest to the northeast.